Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our show tonight. I am quite pleased to see a beautiful panel of our speakers tonight. And the topic that we are going to be discussing is femicide. Please bring your chai and we will continue having a chat together. But before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands where we are meeting. I am on the lands of the Wanarong people of the Kulin Nation, and I acknowledge I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Before we begin, can I invite all of our panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll start with the youngest member here. Ebaad, would you like to have a go?
I'm Ebaad, and I'm 15 years old, and uh, my my mom invited me to this conversation, so I accepted, and I'm here now.
Ebaad will be representing the young person's voice today. Can I then invite Jyothsna to introduce herself?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jyothsna Rao. I'm the manager of Indian Care, and we work in the area of primary prevention and early intervention of violence against women.
Munazza, would you like to have a go as well?
Yeah, I'm Munazza Imran, and I'm here to represent, I think, women in general, subcontinent women as a subcategory, and Pakistani women as a more specific category. So.
Welcome. And Taufiq.
Hello, everyone. Firstly, thank you, Naureen, for inviting me over to your panel. It looks like there's a lot to learn today with all the voices that I am about to hear. And thank you to the audiences of Chai Chat community for having us all on here. My name is Taufiq, and I am a radio presenter on 89.3 FM in Sydney, also on 99.9 FM in Sydney. Apart when I'm not doing that, I keep myself involved in theater. That's live theater, which would involve you could be seeing me somewhere around. Sometimes making a mickey of myself on while I'm trying to act, or rather where I'm more comfortable, which is writing and directing plays. And if that doesn't suit me enough, then I do hop onto film side of things as well, which is why I think one of the reasons that I am here is because in the past few years, I've ended up doing a few films in collaborations with the New South Wales Police on the subject of domestic violence in specific, which was inspired from a number of deaths that actually happened, in which Dowling had an important role to play.
Right. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. A little bit about myself. I'm Naureen. I have been on this show a couple of times before, so the viewers may have seen me speaking with Saleha and other guests. Look, I was born in Pakistan, and now I live in Australia. So I'm quite passionate about women's issues relating to the women in Pakistan and more generally in the subcontinent, and of course globally as well. And I want to see women's issues being highlighted, especially in the context of the hashtag Me Too movement. So many important challenges and barriers have come to the fore because of the debate that was started by the hashtag movement. So I think today's discussion will be really useful. And when we were discussing how to conduct the show tonight, one of the things that we said was these types of discussions are part of the culture change that we want to see. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is that we need to define what femicide is. So I think we'll all have a go at it. When we look at the word, it really brings to mind the word homicide. So it's related to the killing, and the first part of the word femicide obviously refers to the killing of women. So we wanted to limit this scope of our discussion to what we mean by femicide, to the killing of women in particular. So it's a gender-based form of violence against women. But I think we did have a really interesting discussion about the history of the word and how it's been treated in global discussions. So would anyone like to chime in and present what their research yielded for tonight's show?
Going back to the very beginning, like the word femicide comes from 1801 in England, where it was just defined as the killing of women, and 200 years later, it's like still being defined as a term because it has so many different contexts right now. If you look at it from um, Pakistan and India, you'd have like honor killings, and then you just have also domestic abuse would be categorized in there. So it's a very broad term, and it's very difficult to talk about because of all its different contexts.
Mm. Anybody else? Or should we then should we define then the scope of our discussion tonight will be about the gender-based violence, which ends in the killing of a woman. But interestingly, Taufiq, we were talking about the perpetrator of what, of who commits femicide. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, Noreen, and thank you for putting me on the spot there, because this is a tough one to pick right at the start of the beginning. So good on you. Traditionally, as my learned panelists did mention, that this is a word we've been dealing with for the past 200 years, and I would believe 1970s was the one where the first wave of feminism started, and we had to relook at that definition. That definition got broader with regards to who can and cannot be a part or classified within femicide. The more interesting part came in. But one thing that was common for a very long time was it is a man who is essentially the perpetrator of and being accused for killing a woman. And then the reasons can go on in effect that you can keep researching and analyzing what could have been a reason there. Femicide today, thanks to actually women of South Asian origin, the South Asian feminists who have had that insight or intuitiveness to look at femicide as an act against a woman, but not necessarily only by male, because adding females or any other, making this the perpetrator gender neutral, broadens the scope of who all are responsible. And the moment we broaden the scope of people who are responsible, we can narrow the problems that we are actually heading towards. And that's something I do completely and with respect give the credit to the feminist movement within South Asia, which has been able to define that. And hopefully we can narrow it further, as Ebaad did mention, that it is a broader definition. And once, what I have learned in my life is if you want to avoid making a solution of a problem, the best way to do it, confuse the definition of the problem. So that's essentially what we have done. Without acknowledging it, we started defining it, and that's what we've been doing. So hopefully,
Okay,
not that
let's
we expect
acknowledge
any
it.
solution today, but at least start with acknowledging it. Yes, it is a problem.
Yes,
And
absolutely. And I guess the naturally the conversation sort of flows into why are we talking about it. So I would invite Jyothsna and Munazza to give us a little bit of context, situating this problem specifically in the subcontinent. Although we do acknowledge that this is a global phenomenon, it's not specific to the subcontinent, but we as a community from South Asia, we can maybe start from there. And yeah, so either of you can
Yeah.
go first.
Thanks,
Go, Munazza.
Noreen. But before going into that, just I felt like I wanted to elaborate a bit on what Tawfiq just spoke about when you said like who commits it, or like essentially. And so I had actually written this down just in case I don't forget, because like if you just carefully listen to the types of femicide, then you know that there is no pinning anyone down. It's not just gender specific, it's not male, female, it's not country specific, it's not, it is everywhere. The whole society, all countries, all of humanity is complicit. Let me just read this to you. The types of femicide: intimate partner violence, female suicides, HIV related femicide, religious killings, honor killings, all sorts of misogynistic slaying, female fanticide, human trafficking, sexual orientation related killings, like that's LGBTQIA plus plus plus. So who does that leave out? Nobody.
Yep, you've covered the
So there
whole
is
spectrum.
nobody who's exempt. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
that gives you
Yeah.
that gives you pause, literally. That gives us food for thought. So it is much more, when you look at it, if you just look at it like, it's not just, but people generally, when you said how people talk about it, people are just like female kill. It's not just like a few honor killings, a few this. This is an entire spectrum of all sorts of females and LGBTQI people being targeted simply for being who they are or where they are.
I think it also cuts across cultures, cuts across religions, cuts across genders,
Anything.
it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'll just give,
Everything. Yeah.
I'll only quote a few stats out of our watch, which has been very, very vocal and very active in Australia. So, on an average, one woman a week is murdered by her current or former partner, and 1 in 3 Australian women has experienced physical violence since the age of 15. And if we just extrapolate it to our community, we work in this space of primary prevention and early intervention. We also see this. In fact, in 2018, 2019, it was there in the news that 7 women had died by suicide and from the Indian community. And over more investigations, it was found that that was due to family violence. So when a woman is caught in a violent slash conflict situation, it just doesn't affect her. It also affects the children. And family violence actually affects whole communities because it burns out support service staff. It burns out, people, the police, the hospital, whoever comes in contact, listening to that story. And every time the woman is asked to relive that experience, it is trauma. And then we need to look at it from a trauma perspective, which actually can carry on through generations. So this is a huge issue, in our community.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Munazza, I understand that there have been some big stories in the media recently coming out from Pakistan. Would you like to contextualize those for our viewers?
Yeah. So again, like Jyothsna just said, and like we've been discussing, it is like a world over. It is, nobody's exempt. Can happen to anybody anywhere. But depending on different regions, there are certain issues which are more rampant in certain regions. So in subcontinent in general, and Pakistan in particular, femicide. I think the one type that is more common than any other region in the world is honor killings and religious-based killings due to some beliefs. So that's there. But like usually the general wisdom is that happens in the underprivileged communities, happens in certain far-flung tribes, the not so educated and everything. And we have known, as people who've grown up there, that anybody is prone to it, and it's that the common wisdom of it, just the underprivileged or just somebody who's asking for it, or all the usual excuses that we give, they don't apply. But I think the one case that actually brought it home to people in general who were in denial and who were just being ostriches before even, is the Nur Muqaddam case, because like that is either side of the family, height of privilege, living the A plus life and everything, had all the security on earth. Did any of that prevent the horrific killing? No, it did not. So I think that was one case that sort of brought in sharp focus the fact that all you have to be is a woman, and that's it. I mean, for a femicide to happen to you, you just have to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. It is not your fault. You have not brought it upon yourself. You do not deserve it. You are not protected from it. And any social status does not make you exempt from it. So, yeah, so I think that right now the discussion is open, and I think it's a good time to discuss this over here as well. And I think that acknowledgement is very, very important because as Tawfiq was saying before, people are usually looking for excuses and confusion, because it's for any to hide anything. What you want is a smoke screen. So this what aboutery that we do, oh, but what about happening here and there? That is the biggest smoke screen. Like as soon as you raise a topic, some say, oh, but what about that happens there? No, you don't do that. You don't go to what aboutery. You discuss the here and now, and you accept it, you acknowledge it, and then you talk about how to fix it. I think that's the first thing we can do. Stop passing the buck.
Yep.
And so in the Noor Kadam case, like we see in the judiciary, I mean, they're working on it, but justice is not swift, as is always the case. So we can hope for better stuff, but I think the one thing that it has brought home is the need to address the issue. I think that's the positive side of it. So,
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you
like,
for
at the same time,
summarizing
having
that.
said
Really good. Jyothsna, I remember a couple of years ago, the Nirbhaya case was quite highlighted quite a lot in the Indian media, and that sort of left a mark on my psyche as well. A woman who was brutally attacked and who ended up losing her life. Is this a commonplace occurrence in India as well? I mean, we have a little bit more of a context of what happens in Pakistan, but would you like to speak a little bit about what the issues are in India?
So I will, of course, say that I have lived here now for 26 years. So
Oh,
my
goodness.
information is also through media. But yes, Nirbhaya was awful. And I remember feeling, really bad. But I'll just comment on a movie that I had seen called NH10. It
Okay.
was based on Gurgaon, the Haryana and Delhi area. And I remember watching that movie and thinking, oh my God, how unsafe it was for that girl who was trying to flee. It is it wasn't exaggerated, because many years later as well, my friends often say, have you heard of this case? Have you heard of that case? So a lot of honor killings that Munazza was just talking about also happens in India, and particularly when there is a relationship with different religions are involved. Yes, that happens in India. Parents do then try and take the life of their daughter or their son or whatever may be. So it is not very different, unfortunately, and the wheels of justice are slow. And if there are connections, or there is, like we say, tentacles, they are far reaching, yes, it will stop. So all these things are not different.
Jyotsna, since you mentioned a movie and that sort of expands the topic a little bit to media and the responsibility on media to show relationships being depicted and the culture being depicted, and how do you see, Tawfiq, and I'll throw this question to Ebaad as well, what is the responsibility of celebrity personalities or media in general to portray uh, a positive message? Throw that to you, Tawfiq, first.
True. And thanks, Noreen. I mean, again, this is a tough one to pick for me again, because I do represent the media as well as the entertainment industry in some capacity. Not that my say or my contribution in the industry has been much, but being a part of that industry, the one thing that I can mention, and this is by no means I'm saying that I'm trying to escape from the situation I'm in, but there's a saying which we say in India, is that Jesi Praja Vaisa Raja. So your leadership, your entertainment, Your news are a reflection of what your consumption pattern is.
Goodness me, we're in trouble.
Um,
Yeah.
I
No, but
at the same time,
okay.
in the same breath, I will also mention that yes, there are a lot many responsibilities that we have to take on our shoulders, because Nirbhaya, for that matter, I would want to give her the respect of saying that that's not her real name, and if I'm not mistaken, her real name is Jyoti Singh. um,
Right.
and
Okay.
that's what we have done. What we have done is we have made this horrendous crime of rape done on Jyoti and converted that into a media frenzy. The good thing that's come out of it is the
Mhm.
justice was served. The other good thing, which is not such a happy thing, is what even Jyotsna actually touched on, is how delayed was the justice. And if I were to go a little textual or poetic on this one, it is very well understood that justice delayed is justice denied. So there is no particular way that you can actually, but yes, what did happen was the fact that it became a topic of discussion was also the responsibility of media. Uh, at the same time, the fact that the justice got delayed was also responsibility of the media. But the fact that the justice was served because the pressure that media had created was also the credit of the media. So yes, we've done the rights and the wrongs. Coming to the entertainment side of things, it really comes down to the point is, because I come from a conservative or a traditional upbringing, do I get the agency to speak about women of all cultures? No, I don't. If there is a culture which celebrates a woman's image in a way it is, it they have their right to do that. Would I want personally that for myself? Yes, no, that's my choice. Would I want that with my family? Yes, no, that would depend upon the choice that we make as a family. However, at no stage I find that I have the agency to say, why is she wearing that or why is he doing that? Because unless and until I don't have the capacity of holding myself responsible for what I'm doing, I might as well not point fingers at the others. There was an interesting point of acknowledgement that Munazza had mentioned, and the one thing, if I could say here, is the one thing that we need to acknowledge here is when it comes to femicide. I come from that school of thought where power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If you have been given a control of that situation, irrespective of your age, irrespective of your maturity, irrespective of your gender, irrespective of the social culture norms that you follow, if you are in a position of power, you're most likely to abuse it. So, what's happened here is that our perceived patriarchy at the moment is so much influenced by control that even so-called the pseudo matriarchy is also latching onto the patriarchy to ensure that the control is made, because the patriarchy is taking the blame any which ways. We might as well get our things sorted. So what we have to understand is that we have to first focus on the problem, which is the problem of control, the problem of power, and the problem of not having enough checks and balances to make the power go away from the person who is abusing that. So that's essentially where I would conclude what I wanted to say. Yes.
Excellent. Yes, the power relations and the power imbalance is definitely the one
Yeah.
of the root causes of
Yeah.
gender-based violence. Munazza,
And
you
Noreen,
wanted
if I may chip in again, I'm always picking up on Taufiq's statements with like, I feel like, the start, going back to the start, the question you asked him, and he nicely sort of took responsibility and then walked away from it, the media part of it. I feel like if there's one thing, I mean, there's one resource that we can take hold of and make a difference, it is the media. And like, I'll just give you a little example, again, from a Pakistani perspective. In general, Pakistani dramas usually portray a good woman as a woman who has no personality, who has no opinions, who usually does not speak, seen but not heard, sacrifices herself for husband, children, saas, nani, dadi, the neighborhood, everyone, and basically does not exist. that's the traditional image that was portrayed. And so any woman who had any personality at all shown in any drama was perceived as the vamp, as the bad one. Of late, with more consciousness, the dramas are showing that a good woman with an opinion, with personality, with everything, can have a good heart. She can be the good woman. She can be the protagonist of the situation, and the quiet, docile looking, not doing anything can actually be a very devious, vampish kind of a woman. And so the image of a woman with agency as a good woman, that is so important. Like, because in all of subcontinent, that is, I feel like that is one of the root causes of the problem. When you teach women to be silent, to be submissive, to not express themselves at all, and take whatever is thrown at them as the asking cost for being a good woman, that's where the problem starts. So media can definitely elevate the bar on so many levels.
Not only Munazza, I mean, because I'm an avid drama watcher as well, and consumer of Pakistani TV. Can I also just chime in that the masculine roles are depicted as the ones who are aggressive or who sort of take control of the situation, or I mean, they can even perpetrate violence against women and still be the hero. I mean, there have been situations where a man has tortured the woman, and the woman ends up falling in love with her kidnapper. These are the kinds of things we need to actually just stop, ban them from somehow being broadcast on.
So true. Like, I've always had an issue with like all of Hollywood, Bollywood, Lollywood, all Hollywood not so much now, but Bollywood, Lollywood, whatever. Like, literally, who is the hero? The stalker, the in some cases almost rapist, and all the wrong things, and he is the hero of your movie. I mean, come on. Like, he should be the villain.
I would want to come in here. I think sorry. Yeah, so I do want to come in because there have been a couple of points that have been raised. It's again, acknowledging the problem is where it begins, and I do acknowledge that that's a problem. However, what I will also do is I will categorize this problem in two different sections. If you're blaming media for a wrong portrayal, you're talking about news reporting and media, that side of thing. What we are discussing right now is entertainment. So we have to distinguish this at some stage.
No, but like I don't think that's across the line. It sleeps in the news section as well. Like, when you hear the news, it is never
I will come to that. Yes,
committed by the man.
Absolutely. And this is where, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's where essentially the problem starts coming in. The job of the problem of media is not the way they're portraying women. It is the fact that they are falling down or falling victim to the fact that they have to entertain their audience to retain the media. And that's where what happens. Again, who controls? The patriarchy controls media. The patriarchy controls entertainment. And when a patriarchal mindset is creating what will sell, he is thinking about what I want to buy. And then they end up portraying what their problem is. The problem happens is that it over and over gets consumed. The great thing that's happening today is that we have democratized media. We have put down it on social media. We put that on streaming platforms, where the control from editors and control from media giants and from the control from production houses is now going away, and it's coming down to independent creators. And this change is what is the welcome change in the way we are now portraying. So when you see streaming websites today are showing women in a very different way as compared to what our TVs have done, because TV, one person or a group of people control the narrative. On streaming platform, you don't like it, you don't watch it because you've got many things to watch. Same goes with social media. So for me, I'm not taking the blame away or taking the blame on. I'm saying if we do identify the real problem, then we can actually start making solutions. Is the media responsible? Yes, media is responsible, because instead of doing the sacred job of reporting facts, we have now succumbed to the entertainment industry protocols, where retention and gaining audience has become the priority over what we want to report, because it has been corporate interests involved. And corporate interests, as we all know, are any which ways patriarchal in a very big sense.
I think that if you think about the entertainment industry and you're going to blame that, the entertainment industry doesn't really care about
Absolutely.
problems in society.
100%.
They just like, here's what's going to sell, here's what's going to be viewed, and that's it. Now, a lot of filmmakers, a lot of storytellers, they have a message they want to put across sometimes, but in the end, big streaming giants, big studios, they're only going to care about what their audience is watching. So if you take like Pakistani dramas know that that is what their like society, their community enjoys. So that is what they're going to produce, regardless of what message it sends, because it makes money.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
but
And well, I
that's
will
but
add
that's
to
what I
your
mean.
point, and then
Like, but
I'll say that with a couple of
that's
examples.
where
Sorry for
what
Munazza.
Tawfiq said in.
Sorry,
Sorry,
sorry.
yeah.
I'll just
No,
conclude
no,
Ebaad's
I was
point with a
just
couple of
saying that
examples.
it was
That
also,
sorry, it looks like there's a
yeah,
bit of a lag, so I'll
yeah,
just complete the point
yeah,
with Ebaad made. I'll
yeah.
give you just two examples. One, look at Coolie Number One as a film that was recently released, and then look at films like Lunchbox and Newton. If what you're
Mm-hmm.
blaming as a problem would have been a problem, come down to the real level
Mm-hmm.
playing field, come down to streaming websites, and you'll know how well your movie is being accepted. So because the audience wants a choice and the audience was not given a choice, today we have that choice, and we've just begun now transitioning into that new
Yeah.
thing. So yes, we are at this stage a necessary evil, and hopefully we become a necessary asset for the society.
Munazza and then
Yeah, so
Jyothsna.
I was what, yeah, what I've been trying to say all this while. Before all, you said all of that, but I will still say is that I never use the word blame, and there's a big difference. For me, it's a lost opportunity on the part of the media world over. You have the platform, you can get the message across, and like you said, some low budget movies and everything and streaming, and they're doing it. But overall, and again, like, I'm sorry, the human race is not that stupid. I don't buy this argument that people won't watch it. They will, if you put it
Absolutely.
across nicely
Absolutely.
packaged enough. There have been
Absolutely.
some very smart dramas lately which are usually popular, hit the number one spots, and they had totally radical messages. And so you just have to package it right. People have the sense, they are smart enough, they can be educated, but you have to make the effort. So I feel it's a lost opportunity on part of the media. Not enough
Absolutely.
people in the media are making that effort. That's my
100%.
point. And also
100%.
wanted to say to your point that patriarchy is a mindset. A lot of women have a very patriarchal mindset.
Absolutely. I did
Seen
mention
it.
something on the lines of pseudo matriarchy, which I was referring to exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jyothsna, please share your
So
thoughts.
I'm just, I'm fascinated, and I'm very, listening with absolute attention to how it is evolving. So I just had a few points to comment on. So when Munaza talked about the good and the bad and the vamp and the person at home, I just wanted to say that it is never as polarized as it is shown. I understand that it's
yes.
it needs to sell and people need to consume, but when we polarize it to good and bad, or and make it binary, then I think we feed into that capitalism of money, 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 without looking that it actually has far reaching consequences on society, particularly on the younger generation. So that was one thing, because everything is very nuanced, and I think intersectionality is a very important point to think about, particularly in the context of family violence. There are women from the South Asian subcontinent who are more privileged than others, and we've seen that in the recent case in Pakistan. The other thing I wanted to talk about with media is the objectification of women, and I think recently with the Miss Higgins case in Australian Parliament, I think that's also shown that one of the high school students in Sydney, when she ran a survey, so many high school students spoke about this problem. So I think it's very it's not a it's also about the audience that consumes this. Like Munaza said, if you open it out to a wider audience, they will be forced to consume these messages rather than focusing on a audience that consumes streaming and a audience that consumes movies. On that note, there was a recent research by Anne Rose as well as Our Watch, and it was known as National Media Engagement Project. And I think that's a beautiful piece of work because it is actually saying that what is missing in Australian media when it depicts violence against women and children is the understanding between the links of sexism, gender inequality, patriarchal structures, and also community attitudes, and how this feeds into what we see as violence. Because it's not necessarily physical violence, it can be financial violence, it can be emotional violence, it can be so many. When the man threatens the woman and says your visa will get suspended, I don't think that's a decision for him to make.
Yeah.
So I think that
Yeah.
these nuances get lost when we depict a telly serial. I know because my mom watches them too, and I often tell her, "What are you consuming?" Like so. And if she's listening, she's
Yeah.
going to roll her eyes. So sorry, mom, but I think that's a very important point to take.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
acknowledging that femicide just doesn't happen overnight. There's this a whole spectrum of behaviors that have been taking place, which may lead to the ultimate killing of the woman. I recently I work in the public service, and I attended a webinar where the case of Hannah Clark, who was murdered in Queensland and burnt by her husband, and her three children succumbed to the burn injuries as well. Well, that if that was presented as a case study of coercive control, which Jyothsna has mentioned, which led to femicide, and there is a lot of research on what are the sort of the steps that lead the perpetrator to ultimately murder their partner. Unfortunately, in Pakistan and in our communities in the subcontinent, there is so much underreporting that happens that we cannot even begin to understand. I mean, I was looking for some statistics from Pakistan, and it said 200 some odd women are killed every year. And I was like, that just can't be true. For
Absolutely.
every one woman killed, there's probably 100 that go unreported. So these are the kinds of challenges that we are look we're dealing with when we're talking about femicide or gender-based violence in the subcontinent. So thank you so
It's
much for all of
gender-based.
your contributions. We'll talk a little bit about the root causes, and I guess I want to sort of guide our conversation into the direction of what can we do. Firstly, not only as members of the community, but also as conscious human beings, in terms of being the diaspora community. We can make influence in our in where we live, but we have very little impact of what we can do for women and men who are in the subcontinent. So I guess we'll start moving towards that. But we've talked about patriarchy. We've talked about media can play a role. Are there other concepts that we need to think about when we think about the root causes of what these gender-based violence are caused? Why are they caused? And please, anyone can chime in. Who wants to start?
I believe
I just want to make, sorry, Tawfiq,
sorry.
before I forget, I want to make a comment because I have two children, son and a daughter. And my son often says this to me. He says, Mom, it's interesting how in India we raise daughters and love our sons. And I think that's a very insightful comment from a youngster
It is.
who's actually, because he's born here. And I think Ebaad will be able to throw more light on that. And my son often says to me, he says, well, our family is a little bit different because I have to do the dishes and so does my sister, but it doesn't work that way everywhere. And I think
Yeah.
when we raise our children, I think we need to be aware of that gender inequity, because
Yeah.
the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. And so I think that responsibility is on me. And now I would give it over to Ebaad.
I think that culture in the subcontinent has a lot of gender norms, gender roles, and I think that especially here, it's very important to start to eliminate those and not see women as people who do certain things and men who do certain things. It's men do what you decide. If you're a man, you decide to do what you want, and that is what is your responsibility as a man. And a woman does what a woman wants, and that would be her responsibility as a woman to do that. A woman isn't just someone who cooks and cleans, and a man isn't just the breadwinner. I think getting rid of those norms is very important, because now you can have it's normal to have a house husband and a woman as the breadwinner, and that should be seen as completely normal even to us, even though that would not be normal in the subcontinent.
True, true. And thanks about actually bringing up. I might. I mean, my male friends are going to hate me for saying this, but this is the harsh reality of it. Uh, the amount of times we've actually talked is like, my, I wish we were housewives, um, and then those 2 3 weeks of work that they have to do when wives are busy minding a child or going through their pregnancy stages, and suddenly the responsibility comes onto them, that I wish I was a housewife. Dream just goes, breaks and shatters into pieces and never ever comes back again. So this is essentially how it is that gives me an indication of how disconnected we are from the reality of a woman's life within my own house, who I claim to have been calling an intimate partner. And we are distant from that reality, so we at no stage have the agency of commenting, or rather trying to figure out how to fix this particular problem. We need to start going on the back foot and start listening to what you reckon the problem is, and then probably look at it of how to solving it together. We need to stop defining what is femicide as men, thinking that we have the agency to do that. What we need to do is ask you, what do you reckon is femicide, and let's see how we can change. If we are in a situation of authority, why not? If we are not, there are many things we can do. But the one thing that I do want to categorically say is that when we're talking about causes, one of the most convoluted causes of femicide is also the pedestal that we put the role of a woman on. Um, the more
Care to
the more
elaborate
you
on
bring
that?
so the two way of excluding anybody from the society is either make them untouchable at the lower end of the society, or make them untouchable on the highest end of the society. So what we have ended up doing is we have given motherhood a status of almost like God. So if we want to define, and I'll say that in the Muslim context, because I believe we've got four people from the Islamic faith here. We said, well, if you have to define the love of Allah, we say He loves you 70 times more than your mother. If you want to look at Jannah, you find it in the feet of the mother. By giving, and then when I come to my Hindu friends, it is women are devis, they are demigods. What we have done in the bargain is we have taken away your right of being a human, your right of being a normal member of the society. And that's something which, was it done by design? Yes, it was. Was it done for a reason? Yes, it was, because at one stage before the Islamic rule came into the Saudi and Arabian Peninsula in specific, women were a commodity. Women were not treated just like Aboriginals, for that matter. The original owners of these lands were considered subhumans for a very long time, until recently.
That's right.
Just like the European entire setup did not even give women the right to vote, because they were not eligible to make decisions for the country that they are living in, despite of the fact that they're having more than 50% of stake when it comes to demographics. How were we able to do that? We were either able to do that by exerting our power by saying, no, you're not qualified enough to take this decision, or we take the easier way route, We say, oh, you are so important about so many things, so please concentrate on those many things, because I can't do it. I can't raise a child. I can't do the dishes. I can't do this. You are the one who has to do it, because you are capable of it. You've been God gifted to do this. You've been God gifted to love your child. That essentially, in a way, what we're doing is we're taking away our fatherhood, giving you all the responsibility of motherhood, and at the same time going scot free, saying, oh, we've given motherhood such a big status in the society. How can you say women are not equal or women don't have power? Because we've exactly done that. We've used that mechanism, giving you that height of superiority of saying, this is who we are, and suddenly we've taken your rights away, and we're having our way. We are doing this for the past thousands of years, and we are enjoying that. And that's the privilege that you need to acknowledge and change. Sorry, I just went into a speech there. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yes, no worries. Thank you. Hmm. I'm sh- I'm sure Munazza has a lot of things to say about that. So please, the mic is yours. The floor is yours.
I do like it's like, I mean, we all know that, like, and I have this like private joke with my friends. It's like men always knew that women were better, so they had to suppress it, like from the start, from the get-go, suppress them in every way possible that we can. And that's what the history speaks of. Like, I mean, the witch hunts, what have you. What were witches? Any woman who could read, who could sing, who was intelligent. Like, what was the definition of a witch? Basically, any woman who had consciousness, who wasn't dumb. So yeah, so it is a historic fact that women have been hunted down for simply for being women. So that exists. That's just there. And speaking to what Taufiq just said, that either they put you on a pedestal or they throw you to. Basically, it's the same thing. Basically, what is being done is that you're being categorized, you're being assigned your slots. Stay in this slot or stay in this slot. Here you're a deity, here you're a slut. And there's nothing in between because you're not human. So there is no human slot for you. So it doesn't matter whether it's deifying you or whether it's slut shaming you. You're doing the same thing. You are telling women what their place in society is, because women themselves don't have the brains to think what their place is. So that is the bottom line of
Haven't
that
been given the
categorization.
opportunity to think, I'd say.
Yeah, so no, but that's what I'm saying. The patriarchal mindset thinks that we don't have the capacity. In their heart, they know that we do. That's why there's this active suppression. They know that women will take over the world if they're given the chance. So actively suppress them while we can. That's my
And I
theory
think
about
that's
it.
one
So,
way of
but
maintaining that structure and status quo as well, Munazza. So
yeah,
the
it is. Like just
that's
keep chipping
exactly what.
away.
So it's very
And
systemic barriers that
very
exist.
systematic. Like when we speak about that's what I mean. Like the religious, like the church, everything. Like the any organized religion, any organized, like you look at it. There's a systematic way of keeping women in a certain position. No free will, basically. No opinion, no agency over your own body. So it is very systematic. It is at all levels of society. It is very systematic. But like speaking to what Naureen was speaking earlier, like just quickly before I give a speech like Taufiq, so is that I think I'm a big one for personal responsibility. And I feel like what we have to do is we all of us know that perceptions need to change, mindset needs to change. But then if you look at it at that sentence, like, oh my gosh, how do you change a whole societal mindset? It's a big deal, we can't do it. No, you change yourself, you do the best that you can. And these are not popular choices, mind you, because you have to, like, in the words of Lord Voldemort, like it's good to stand up to your enemies, but it takes more courage to stand up to your friends. So when you start having those meaningful conversations, your own friends don't like you that much. You're not the sweet, just chitty chatty person anymore. You are saying things that make them think, yeah, that make them question their own conduct. They don't like it. So, but like, if you really want to make a difference, start saying what you believe, putting it out there, making people uncomfortable. You have to do that.
I think so. Before you even do that, first I think we should define what we
Basic.
think needs to change. It's very easy to say we need to do this, but we don't believe that it should happen. And I would differ a little bit on what Munazza says about personal responsibility. I look at these kind of things from a very systems background, that these systems, so personal development happens when the systems enable you to develop. But every time you climb the ladder, if someone pulls you down, that's not going to happen. So from the change the story framework, which is what we use at Indian Care for our women, and when I say our women, it's not limited to India, it's South Asian women. It is about teaching them financial literacy. It is about removing the biggest barrier is language, because of the way things are done. We speak a mixture of Hindi, Urdu, English, Punjabi, and many other South Asian languages. And even now, I have to consciously remember to speak in English because this is a English chat show. But and that, I think, when we speak in our mixture, we immediately put the person at ease, and we have a shared culture. So we then navigate that banking system, that legal system together, so that the woman feels that yes, that barrier can be removed. And I think from the high school students and the uni student, by the way, I have great faith in the next generation. I think we have done a brilliant job. The fact that Ebaad is even sitting here talking about this is testimony to how well, that it's amazing. So I think they're in good hands. So the legal literacy, financial literacy, and of course then we start educating the men, and we bring the men who recognize it along with us on this journey. So we don't do it alone, but we do it together. So that's something I
Yeah.
think should be.
I think like that's very important in our society
No,
right now.
totally.
Like,
Beautifully said, Jyothsna, and I totally agree. But like what I meant about personal responsibility is that each person has to make that effort, and then you come together as a unit, and then you come together as a society, and then you come together as a nation. But it
Yes,
always starts with I. Improvement begins with I. The old idiom still holds.
yes,
So
totally.
we
That
have to
actually brings
start
me into a
ourselves
question, if I may
before
ask,
we
whenever.
gather.
And that my question is actually to Ibad. Ibad, how often do you, amongst your friends, as a casual conversation, do talk about male and female roles or male and female issues, or do you still use that language of binary gender structure in the society, or do you talk differently? I want to learn from you guys.
somewhat. If we're talking about like just speaking about issues with patriarchy and with gender norms, that's like a pretty frequent discussion.
Okay.
Not like, and it won't just be with female friends. I'll have that with my male friends as well. With like gender binary terms, I mean, a lot of my friends like will not use like certain will not use like gender specific pronouns until you know a person better.
Okay.
But so like the language to do with just gender binary discussion is different. But yeah, it is a very common discussion, and I think that like what I've noticed is that the media, especially on like places like Instagram and TikTok, there's a really like big push to divide men and women, to have women pushing out hating men, and then with men pushing out misogyny, saying that they hate women, that all women are a certain way. And I think that like right now, which the media specifically is trying to divide both sexes, and I think that it's very important for us to, like you guys said, come together and work on this together, because it's not an issue of women hating men and men hating women. That has to like stop for this to progress.
Great.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
Thanks.
I'm a little bit floored at the moment. Look, lots of yes. One thing that I wanted to discuss as well is what is our role as a bystander. A lot of times we hear about a certain family in trouble, and we just don't know what to do. And another thing that I would love to sort of discuss in the last few minutes that we have is how to check our unconscious biases when it comes to gender norms, and when we're sharing jokes about, men hating and women hating and all of the, how should we react, and how have you reacted in your own personal sort of situation? So anybody can take that.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of jokes
Okay.
about like just like in high school generally. There's tend to be a lot of jokes about like um, boys making um, bad jokes about women, and then women making bad jokes about like just like they tend to be sexually suggestive, and I think that like it's very important to shut that down really quickly because it's just kind of gross, and it's
Yes.
like it's not what am I looking for? It's not tasteful, and these people tend to be like people that you're friends with, and then you hear people making remarks. So I think it's important to call that out. I think that like it's your responsibility to call that out.
May I
So
actually
true.
continue on to
Totally.
that
And
if
I'm
that's
proud of
fine, in terms of
you that you're
examples?
doing, honestly proud of you that you're doing that, shutting it down at your age, because like even grown-ups are constantly doing that. And misogynistic, and those jokes, they are so common. And the funny thing is, and when Noreen said that, have you shut it down, I'm glad you're doing it, because like it's easier to do it where you are at now. About start now, it's easier. With our generation, people are so set in their mindsets that when you call it out, when you try to shut it down, people get offended. It's like, for example, like, I don't want to quote the exact joke, but like there's a joke that goes like, about women. It's very common. It's like, oh, she's had 4 kids, and oh, she says she never found true love, and then everyone laughs about it and stick like that. And then there's a very good friend of mine, and he posted that joke on his timeline. He is a person himself married with 4 kids, and all of us know that the story that, oh, I never found true love and not happy in the marriage and everything. So I actually challenged him on that. I said, if you can have that story, you can have 4 kids without having found true love, why can't a woman have the same the same problem or story or whatever? And he got so offended. He thought that I was attacking him. And then I had to actually go in and explain, I'm not attacking you. I am just calling out the mindset, because, like I was saying before, and people might not realize it, but I have learned it from personal experience. Unless you start speaking to the people in your life first, this is not going anywhere, because it's very easy to just put it out there and, oh, some boogeyman is doing it. No, your loved ones, your friends, people around you are doing it. And that's where we can actually make a small, teeny bit of a difference by calling it out as soon as we see it. And I have done it. Like I said, it's an unpopular thing to do. But if you are really serious about changing things, you have to do it.
Sure.
I think that's like a
I,
really big shock that comes as like I started to grow up. That usually you hear about stuff like violence against women, sexual violence, blah 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 blah, all that stuff, and then you think, oh yeah, this is just a distant thing away from me. But then as
Yes.
you grow older, I've noticed that like it starts to happen to your friends very casually.
Yes.
It's not really called out and it's hushed, and it's like, wait, this is happening to people that I know
Mhm.
and that to people that I care about, and people who are friends with people that I care about.
Yes.
So I think that like people just shut their eyes and look the other way too much.
Yeah,
sure.
that is such a big part of the problem. Like, I honestly feel that this culture of silence in the subcontinent, where you have to keep this picture perfect image, everything is perfect, and my husband is perfect, my this is perfect, and that is perfect, and God forbid we show some weakness. So that, along with the fact that we look the other way too many times, that these are the two, like, root causes that ultimately everything else feeds into.
Absolutely. And
That's how
Munazza,
I've always felt. So yeah,
I mean, again,
good on you, Ebaad.
while we are
Congrats.
towards, yeah, while we are actually towards the end of this, and if there are men still watching this and not plotting my murder already, I would want to kind of raise on to
Yeah.
one more point. Um, don't ever, as men, and this is something which is a very man to man thing I'm talking at the moment, don't ever think that if you had an opinion 5 years back and you made a public declaration of that opinion, it's okay to change it. When
Always.
when I
Yes.
actually, and I'm
Yeah.
saying this
Good.
because I'm guilty of it myself, right? Today it's very easy
Mm,
for us, as Munazza mentioned, we get very offended when we talk about that the moment I make any
mm,
jokes within men or women making jokes within women, the very first butt of the
mm.
jokes to go under the bus are our respective partners.
Yes.
Maybe we can start, and I've been guilty of that. I mean, this is something which we would do so casually without even realizing what with the bigger consequences of that. And Facebook has actually helped me
Yeah.
that way, because when my memories come up
Mm,
and I see what post I've done in terms of humor, in the name of humor, in a 2009 or 2010, are something which I cringe on myself and say,
yeah.
well, like, what were you thinking while putting that up? My thinking maybe has
Yes.
evolved, and I'm happy to say that, yes,
Yeah.
from pretending to be someone who is a liberal feminist, I am now moving towards that into my action as well, and it's a journey for me, and I'll be making many mistakes on my way. I'm willing to say that, and at the same time I do hope the other men and people who are willing to make change and not necessarily restricted to men come up with that similar thought that it's okay to change your opinions because you evolve. You are not the same person who you were yesterday, let alone a few years back.
Yeah. And good on you for doing that and saying that. But like I said, it's a mindset. So women are as much guilty of it. So I quickly admit that yes, you are I'm the only one. I have changed because like I did conform to that good woman image that we were taught since we were born. But I have self-taught myself that's not what a good woman looks like. So we are
Good
also
on you,
entitled, all of
Munazza.
us. What I've always said, women's rights are human rights. Once we digest that, everything will be fine.
Brilliant, brilliant. I don't want to take anything away from any whatever you have said is valuable and precious. Any last thoughts? And if you want to summarize that in a couple of sentences, I will just say one thing. The more I learn about different topics, the more I realize how much I don't know. So, although we've been talking about femicide for the past 1 hour, I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface yet. So, thank you
Absolutely.
so much for all your contributions. But I'll pass the floor to each of you for your final thoughts and comments, if you can keep it to a couple of sentences. Please. Thank you. Jyothsna.
I just want to say that I'm absolutely, just I'm just so wrapped with this session today, and particularly with Ebaad. Bless you. It was so wonderful to, listen to your thinking and the fact that, I mean, it's good to see that your generation has that courage to call it out. And for that, mashallah, seriously, thank you so much.
Munazza, ladies first. Or maybe we can change that tradition.
Thank you. Um,
Not that we've
Maybe
stuck to it. We were just going haphazard. But yeah, well, I think I already said the thing that really is close to my heart is that women's
um,
rights are human rights. Like,
yeah, I
let
think
that
it's
sink
important.
in. We are all the same, each human deserves the same rights regardless, like, and of any like gender orientation, or anything like sexual, gender, geographical, whatever. Just give every single human the same respect and the same rights, and we shall be fine. I think that's what I honestly feel.
beautiful. Yes, thank you. Ibad, do you want to have a go? Final thoughts.
No, I'm all good.
All
I'm all
good?
good. I
Okay.
think I've said
Tawfiq.
everything I wanted to say. Yeah.
Tawfiq.
Sure. Well, Noreen, as you mentioned that we haven't even scratched the surface, but what we have done is we've acknowledged that there is no easy solution to it apart from the fact that we need to start creating solutions. And the very first solution I have been fortunate to be a part of is this particular conversation. And thank you for actually initiating something like that. Femicide, as much as it has been existed, it's not directly a subject that I've spoken on for a very long time. As a matter of fact, not even research, because for a very long time, femicide and honor killing were the only restrictive understanding that I had. So thank you for giving me that opportunity to force myself to look that I'm informed about this subjects and do some frantic research, because I wouldn't have known about this with the depth that I am speaking at the moment. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. And thank you for just being so generous with your sharing of information and your knowledge and your wisdom. And I hope that we can continue to build on what we have created today, a very foundational discussion. I hope whoever is watching, either live or in the recorded webcast, will be able to take something away from what we have shared today. So thank you so much for your time, your contributions, and have a really good night. And hopefully we will see each other again. Good
Thank you.
night.